Morning. We are convening a special meeting of the Marion County Board of Commissioners today. It's Thursday, September 3rd, 2015. It's 11:30 a.m. We're in the Senator Hearing Room at Courthouse Square in Salem, Oregon, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the purpose of the special meeting is to consider approval of an emergency drought declaration. Now, we put public comment on, and I don't know if anyone came to speak during public comment. Most people in the room look like they're here officially. Jenna, did you want to say anything, or did you want to wait? Okay, so maybe we can call up underneath the item. That might make more sense than doing it under public comment. So we'll move from public comment to action. And Commissioner Cameron, we put your name on here just to kind of introduce the topic, and then we can turn it over to Ed Flick. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Today we're going to consider the approval of emergency drought declaration, and we have been following this. Just a little bit of a background and history. I think it was back in May or June, I was walking on top of the docks up at Detroit Lake on the land, and came back, and we asked for a management update. And Ed Flick has since that date, every week or every other week, given us an update. We know that there's 24 counties throughout Oregon that have declared or asked the governor to declare an emergency, which is what we're going to be asking for today. And we monitored that, but held off doing that for as long as possible so that we could have local control, and our farmers, being the number one agricultural county in Oregon, could have control over their water. And just recently, we've been asked by some farmers so that they could access some domestic water supply, and to expedite that, we must ask the governor to declare an emergency. So that's what we're here for today, and I guess Ed's going to go into some more detail on that.
Okay. Good morning, Ed. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson and Commissioners. I'll provide you current information, analysis, and identify some policy options for the board to consider.
Ed, do you want to give your name and position?
Of course. For the record, I'm Ed Flick. I'm the County Emergency Manager for Marion County. To date, 24 out of Oregon's 36 counties have asked the governor for a declaration for drought. Looking at the current weather and outlook, as of August 25th, the Federal Drought Monitor has designated all of Marion County as experiencing either severe drought or extreme drought. The extreme drought currently is isolated to the eastern part of the county, but significantly where the majority of our water comes from for over half of our citizens. That drought is determined both by the physical conditions and the result of the economic impacts. Although we've recently had some temporary relief with scattered rain and thunder showers, the National Weather Service forecast that we're going to see continued above normal temperatures and below normal precipitation through the rest of the summer and into the fall. The outlook is uncertain as we look at a strong El Nino year. There's been a number of drought effects. The most profound economic effect has, of course, been with the city of Detroit in that area's recreation. But farmers have also reported yields have been significantly impacted, down 20 to 40%. And farmers report challenges in late season irrigation requirements. From an environmental perspective, there's been a significant impact on migratory fish based on both the temperature and low level of the rivers. To date, there has not been significant impact on municipal water systems. We've gathered information from the actors in this arena. The Army Corps of Engineers, who operate the Willamette system, assess that they will be able to maintain adequate flows from Big Cliff Dam to feed the North Santiam River until the start of the rainy season. They've set a goal to maintain at least 700 cubic feet per second in that system and have exceeded that output throughout the summer. However, it should be noted that they expect there may be requests from the fisheries to increase the flow temporarily soon, which would serve to limit their ability to reinforce and augment water flows in the fall. Talking to the Oregon Water Resources Department, they tell us that every year they regulate users off of streams through the summer. But this year, given the record low stream flows, they've had to do that sooner, and they've had to regulate more people off. Some cities in the county have implemented voluntary water conservation measures. But significant to this issue, only the city of Gates has written it into their water curtailment and conservation plan that they would implement conservation and measures in the event of a governor's declaration. Otherwise, cities would continue to chart their own policy. As a result of a separate declaration process at the federal level, farmers, ranchers, and small non-agricultural businesses have been eligible for drought-related loan assistance programs since June and will continue to be eligible for the next 8.5 months. According to the Oregon Water Resources Department, farmers often respond to drought by applying to transfer rights, which is using water from a different location, or making emergency permit requests, which would be using another source of water temporarily. For example, a domestic well for irrigation, or using a well instead of an in-stream use. This permitting process can move faster and more cheaply with the declaration in place, but it's important to note that the declaration does not guarantee that a permit will be issued, particularly in the groundwater limited areas of the county. According to the Oregon Water Resources Department, domestic wells are exempt from the need for water rights, but can only be used for household purposes and to irrigate up to 1/2 acre of non-commercial landscaping or gardens. Under the authorities granted to the Water Resources Department by statute, when the governor issues a drought declaration executive order, citizens can apply for a drought permit to temporarily use a domestic well for commercial irrigation. This process can be completed in approximately 10 days. Without a declaration, citizens would have to apply for permanent water rights, and this process can take months. According to the Water Resources Department, the primary benefits of a state drought declaration are that it creates greater awareness for drought conditions, facilitates coordination between state agencies, and allows the Water Resources Department to provide existing water rights holders with access to emergency water management tools. According to the Oregon Water Resources Department, there have not been an unexpectedly high number of applications for drought-related permits, although more citizens may come forward if a declaration were in place. Until last week, no party had requested Marion County to declare a drought. Now that Marion County has received such a request, and considering that the vast majority of counties have declared, and that the county is experiencing prolonged and severe drought, and that the weather outlook for the fall and winter is uncertain at best, and that the county has experienced damages to agriculture, recreation, and the environment, it is likely that the governor would issue an executive order declaring drought in Marion County if one were requested by the Board of Commissioners. It's important to note that all declarations the state has issued will expire on 31 December 2015. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Ed?
Maybe, and if you said it, Ed, I'm sorry, and I had it written here, but just a little discussion about recent rainfall, moisture, have any effect, anything good, make us feel any better, or just lower fire danger but do nothing for water?
Commissioner, the recent rains have reduced the fire danger, particularly in the Western Cascades, and we've seen the Oregon Department of Forestry relax some of their restrictions on campfires. However, I spoke to the state deputy climatologist on Friday, Kathy Dello, and she was quick to point out to me that whatever rain we would experience over the weekend would not significantly impact the situation with the drought.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, just, it's probably not necessarily a question for Ed, but just a statement about Army Corps and looking towards the future. Hopefully we can get somebody's attention with maybe changing the curve and the way they're looking at the curve of holding back water. It's an observation that last February, when we had quite a bit of rain, we could have held back some more water with no snowpack and not a threat of flooding, but we followed an old 30-year-old curve or 40-year-old curve and let the water out. So just probably a public statement that we need to somehow get their attention, and we'll do everything we can from here to try to help in the future. Thanks for your work, Ed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I might, one thing that Ed said that no farmer had asked, and that isn't quite true, at least with me. I have been asked in social settings why we're not doing it. And the basic summary of what I told them was we're not getting requests, and they weren't really requesting. And afraid, it's been mentioned, a winners and losers scenario where we might take from one and give to the other. We're not looking for that. And we're certainly trying to take it serious. And then just restating Commissioner Cameron's comments, we've certainly been watching, and it is at this time, I feel like, and now it seems like it's necessary to go ahead and ask for this declaration.
And we do have a letter from the Marion County Farm
Yes.
Bureau, and we have a representative from the Farm Bureau here, so would you like to come forward now, Joe?
Well, she's coming up. The second part of that, I told them they were concerned they weren't eligible for grants, et cetera, or help.
Yeah,
And
right there's fine, yes. No, here's fine.
And from what we were finding out, that wasn't the case. If there was any monies available or loans under the scenario already in place, they would have been eligible.
Right. So go ahead and
Good morning,
introduce yourself.
Commissioners. Genoa Ingram, Marion County Farm Bureau. You have my letter before you, or the John Zelinski's letter before you, President of Marion County Farm Bureau, so I won't belabor it. Just 2 quick points. We did not just survey the board, but we surveyed our membership as well, the entire list. And as was summarized earlier, there was not an overwhelming, they felt there was not an overwhelming need to declare drought conditions. Since then, it's come to our attention that particularly the blueberry farmers are having issues where if they could access that domestic water, that would be of tremendous help to them. One thing I did want to mention before leaving is I just wanted to express my appreciation and that of the Farm Bureaus to Ed Flick. As the responses were coming in from our emails, he responded to concerns, answered questions, and was very, very responsive to their written emails that came as a result of our request. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and it's very useful having this letter. I know it helps us. That was the questions that we asked on Monday when we had management update, 'cause so we had the request, where are we, where's the Marion County Farm Bureau, Oregon Farm Bureau, let's find out, because again, we don't want to create a scenario by helping certain farmers that we're harming others, but I think what I've heard is that we're way down in the agricultural season now, so the water rights issue probably isn't as alarming to the farmers that might have had concerns at the outset, and so now we're at a place where we really can help these blueberry farmers, and otherwise what we've heard is they're at risk of losing their crop this year entirely.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlson. That's absolutely correct, especially with the non-established, the newer crops. And it was just a matter of an abundance of caution, really. They didn't want to change up the priorities if it wasn't absolutely necessary, and it has become so now.
Great, and I think we'll be passing this letter on to the governor, along with your report, Ed, when we ask for that drought declaration then.
Thank you.
From the governor. Great. Any questions for Genoa? Good?
Thank you.
All right, and so before we make a motion, I've been reading through, and again, we did this on very short order. We had a discussion on Monday at Management Update. We asked Ed to check in with some people. Then yesterday, at the tail end of board session, we did our little, have it like on the Channel 2 News, they have a little chit chat at the end. We have our little chit chat at the end of our board session. And the issue of drought came up, and it was like, oh my goodness, what are we doing with this? And so we just kind of decided right then and there we would do this today. So we had an hour and 10 minutes to notice it, and caught Gloria as she was walking out of the office and said, hey, we need the declaration. And Jenna, as she was walking out of board meeting, said, we'll get the letter. So all of this was done again in pretty short order. We have this standard format, and in looking at it, there are some things that won't, Scott, I'll give you my notes, but capitalization and removing some underlining. But there are two places where I'm going to recommend wording changes. So I want to make sure I put those on the record right now so that when it comes back. On page 2, underneath the paragraph that's underlined where the first whereas starts, it's the only whereas on the page. It says, right now it says, whereas the entire county is in a state of emergency, and if not the entire county, an emergency is declared for the following areas, the entire county. So I think we could really need to say, and Gloria, I'll ask you, could we say, whereas the entirety of Marion County is in a state of emergency, period? Would that work? And then we shorten that up so we're not saying the entire county is, and if it's not the entire county, it's the entire county, all right? So does
That's
that,
correct. Madam Chair, this is a standard form because sometimes when we have emergency declarations, we might not be in the building. So
Right.
that's why it was kind of a
Exactly.
fill in the blank type of thing. But we can easily fix it.
okay. It doesn't change the meaning of it, it just makes it a little bit clearer. And then under the resolve, the second resolve from the bottom, so it's right under that whereas, if we would say, right after it says effective this third day of September 2015 at 11:30 a.m., instead of saying for the area described above, we could say for the entire county, and it is further. And that way we're not going up to a sentence that now doesn't have an underline and perhaps would be less clear. So does that work for the board to just make
Sure.
those two word changes? And with that, we can approve the declaration. So do we have a motion to that effect?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution that declares a state of emergency as a result of severe drought conditions in Marion County.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, comments?
I think we've hit them all.
All right, anything you want to add, Commissioner, to?
No, I think we've said it.
Okay. All right, I just want to, I'll put on the record, I'm very much in favor of this and for all the reasons that we've talked about. Also, again, appreciate the work of Ed, the Farm Bureau, legal counsel, others in our office scrambling to get things noticed at the last minute. Christy particularly for getting the agenda together. So if there's no further discussion, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
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 All right, that's approved. Anything else for the good of the order today?
Well, I think we're gonna be sending some information out as soon as we're done here, but in a typical year, I think the statement is perfect. In a typical year, we'd be sorry to see the summer and sunny days come to an end. Instead, we're all looking forward with anticipation and the promise of some rain. This is Oregon after all.
Yes. We will now pray for rain.
Yeah.
All right, that's a great way to end the session. So with that, we will adjourn.